Okay, I guess I just started. I'm going to have part 2 to this. Anyway, so I was saying, I was talking about in part 1 how I've noticed sometimes men are kind of trying to evade any responsibility towards women, yet they want full sexual access to her, but don't want to deal with her emotions. And they'll say things like, well, can't really guarantee that, or I don't know, we'll see, and I don't know if I want to deal with those expectations. Listen, if you're going to be sexually involved with a woman, there are expectations. Otherwise, get out of there. You don't belong there. You're just taking. Sorry. I mean, I'm going to be bold enough to just call it out as it is. That's not going to last for very long. And if someone is willing to give you that, then she's a victim. And she just doesn't have the confidence or the verbal skills or the knowledge or experience to like know better to prevent that from happening. I feel like I've definitely gotten a sense of kind of where the culture is. At least I'm talking from Hawaii and California culture, and it could be completely different anywhere else. So just keep in mind, I'm speaking from those societal norms and the societal culture from which I'm in. That might be different in other countries and other states and so forth. So this is just what I've noticed from clients, from girlfriends talking about it, from my own experience. There seems to be sort of this entitlement where men have gotten a little spoiled of kind of getting used to just really taking a lot from women who are generous and not always giving back an equal portion. So I need to call that out because, if I'm talking to the choir, then you know that you don't need to worry about this. But if you're triggered at all by what I'm saying, then it's probably something you need to look into. And it's become such a norm almost in the culture that I'm in that you almost might not notice it because you're like, well, I normally get that, or I'm normally used to, getting laid after the second date or sometimes the first date or whatever it is. But I can say to you that the women probably are not speaking up because they don't know how to verbalize how they're really feeling about it. If they really told you how that made them feel and how they're experiencing it, I bet you'd be shocked. Because most of them, there's a lot of disappointment and they don't feel like they're getting out of it. From what I hear, they're not getting out of it as much as they're putting in, and it's not really worth the risk. And it seems like women kind of learn that at some point and then just sort of stop playing that game. And yeah, so anyway, I just kind of notice it almost feels a little bit narcissistic to kind of just want everything, but then not really willing to invest in the woman. So I'm not, for instance, my age, I'm turning 52 in a month, March 4th. And I'm to the point where I really don't engage unless there's really something that stands out, as a true connection. If they, that they can meet me on my level to some degree in their consciousness and in their evolution and their skill sets and whatnot. I'm just tired of dealing with, I don't know, the bullshit, I guess, that I find out there where there's kind of like, oh yeah, let's hang out. And then, so in a way, and I can kind of describe what I'm trying to say here in this analogy, because this is the other point I wanted to bring up. So yeah, I'm kicking your ass a little bit, but it can change your life. And if you hear me, this can really improve your success with women. And it'll also prevent you from creating bad karma, because eventually it'll catch up with you and women will start doing it to you, and then you'll be on the receiving end of it. And you'll be like, oh shit, this is what I've been doing to women this whole time. So you don't want to be creating bad karma, and you don't want to be getting a reputation. I know in a small town, in Maui's one of them, word gets around, women talk, and you kind of, you have to be in integrity or it just doesn't work. So, another thing that kind of dovetails into this that I wanted to say was that it feels like men a lot of times are expecting sex like right away. It's almost like this culture of one night stands and hookups. And so if I were to flip it, guys, how would you feel if a woman said, hey, just keep giving me money, keep taking me out, keep buying me stuff, but you're not going to get any sex? How would you like that? Because that's the flip of it. You would probably go, pfft, right? So in a sense, you're kind of, a lot of you, I notice, seem to be saying that. There's enough of you, or enough of a percentage of you, at least in this, maybe it's more so in this millennial culture or younger generation. I don't know. I just notice it's been showing up a lot more lately in my counseling, where I'm having to deal with this and the complaints around it, where it seems like the men are expecting sex, but then they don't really want to give anything in return. And what I mean by that is that it's like they even want to try to get out of taking the girl out for a date. It's like they'll say, oh, why don't we hang out? And basically that kind of means, oh, let's have sex. And then I don't have to pay for a meal or a date for you. I can get out of that too. And so it's like there's no investment towards her. It's actually really disrespectful. If you're wanting, like, the greatest gift she can give someone, is her intimacy and her body and her heart and all that. And you don't even want to take her out on a date, which isn't enough to pay for that anyway. It's really sad. It's like, God, where did the romance go? The art, the art of seduction. At least be good at seducing her so she feels like it's worth it. Oh man, yeah, it just makes me nod my head, because I'm just like, God, is this what we've come down to? Is this how bad it is? It's like, no wonder women are just not impressed. And men, I'm so sorry to harsh on you, but if you're one of those men that needs to hear it, then this can be a life changer. And if you don't need to hear it, then maybe you can help your guy friends, because it does seem like there's enough of it probably doesn't help that, the millennials and a lot of men are getting a lot of their information just from porn, which is totally not realistic or from a woman's point of view. So it doesn't work for us. And you're just kind of thinking that that's the way it looks and that's the way it seems. And it's, I get a lot of clients too whose wives are just done. Like, they're sick of dealing with, they're just not getting anything out of it. And then the husbands wonder why they're not enrolled in wanting to have sex with them anymore, because they're just not getting what they need out of it. And granted, it takes a lot of communication skills to tackle that, between a couple. So it's not easy, and that's where NVC comes in, and that's part of my practice, because you almost need a mediator when you're talking about these sensitive issues, because usually people don't have those skills to really get to the other side of it. It's sensitive matter. And, I think a lot of women they're not wanting to emasculate him and say, I just don't really enjoy it. Like, they might say something like, or think something like, it just seems like it's always about you. And you like it this one way because that's how you're able to come, but it doesn't really do anything for me. And you're not really doing enough foreplay, and you're not taking care of me before you engage, and that's kind of like your ticket in. So anyway, there just seems like there's a lot of, I don't know, it's sad. Anyway, I did have a vision this morning where the tables were turned, and it was where everything switched. So it kind of became more of a female dominated culture instead of what I consider the male entitlement culture that we have right now. And this is where you guys really learn it, where women have a lot more choices available to them. There's a lot more men available to them. And they start maybe doing the same stuff to you that you've been doing to them all along, which is they're not really not really that into it, not really wanting to continue, or they just have better offers and better options and more options available to them now, to where, you know, if you're not really evolved enough or in integrity or have a lot to bring to the plate, then she's kind of like, well, you know, I just have better offers. I have people who can, you know, who take me on trips and who treat me out and who, you know, genuinely want to get to know me and ask me questions, and you don't do any of that. So, you know, kind of thing. So I'm sorry to, you know, have to be the bearer of bad news, but sometimes we have to have these pep talks, and it's part of my job to be honest and straightforward about these things that normally don't get talked about because it's kind of uncomfortable or edgy or whatever. But, you know, if your mom didn't teach you these things, then where are you going to learn them, right? Hopefully your girlfriends, you know, in the back in the old days, in the Aborigine and Native American cultures, they assigned the young people to an elder who could teach them these things so that they would know and kind of get up to pace on how to be, you know, coming from the heart, and how to be respectful and what kind of protocols involved. Because otherwise, if that's not being taught, it feels like it's just really gotten into this kind of overly sex positive, almost like, I mean, how is this different than sex trafficking, honestly? I don't know. It just seems like a kind of a maybe more mild version of it. And so I sense that men are going to really need to step up, or they're going to start losing their ground, and women are going to find other options, and or go with the guys who are stepping up and have more to offer. And I happen to be getting a lot of men coming to me wanting to train to be a Tantra practitioner, and those are going to start becoming available to women too, where they also can go off somewhere and get taken care of, you know, by a conscious man who knows what he's doing, instead of messing with the dating pool. And so anyway, something to think about. What do you think? So you put your comments below and tell me where you think you stand on a scale of 1 to 10, and if you needed to hear that, if that was helpful, and maybe anything you want to add to it. Because I know, I mean, females aren't perfect either. It's just that I tend to hear, you know, from my girlfriends, and I've experienced it myself too, so I totally know what they're talking about. And yeah, and in my counseling and stuff. So yeah, I'm curious. What do you think?